I really think, you know, especially now in horror, a lot of it is really relies on subverting expectations and, you know, just the genre field because, you know, starting back in the 80s, I feel like this formula is kind of formed where you've got to kill the first kid in the first minute, and then, you know, every 10 pages you kill another kid, and then you reveal the killer, and it's always someone you least expect. I mean, for the slasher formula at least, but, you know, I think true life horror in the world happens immediately when you're going about your day, when you have nothing, where there's no anticipation, and it's very important to me, and the films that always stick out to me are the characters who don't necessarily realize that they're in horror when the crazy shit starts happening to them. And I feel like, especially now with the ability to shoot things on a DSLR for no money, there's really a whole lot of space to not necessarily have to conform to the 10-page kills. And, you know, it's very, you know, jarring when a movie like Rosemary's Baby pans out as a relationship drama and a whole, you know, stress drama about pregnancy, and then all of a sudden there's a satanic cult involved. So I think it's thinking outside of the box to let the audience think that they're ahead of you or they're on the same page as you, and then totally pulling the rug out from under them is something that I think the most effective horror films really do.
All genres are defined by a set of rules, and especially in a, you know, in a kind of development system where you're dealing with executives or producers or whatever, they will often then try to rely on those and talk about the rules. And what are the rules? You know, it's a vampire, so it's got to be asleep by dawn, or it can be killed by a, you know, whatever, it's a werewolf with silver bullets, whatever it is. The things we grew up with, kind of embracing those rules, when in fact, today, what is great and distinctive about horror are the things that take those rules apart. That started, yes, very much in the 80s, I think, with things that played with those rules, like Scream and all the things that came in the 80s and 90s, 2000s that did that. But also, the Japanese horror films that started coming into our culture, the new waves of European horror films in this last 10, 20 years, some of the great Antipodean work, you know, Wolf Creek and things like that, which all work because they don't follow our rules at all, or they have another set of cultural kind of genre rules like the Japanese do that we don't know. And so it's creepier. It's like, why is that girl walking towards me with her hair over her face? Now, if you were Japanese, you might instantly go, ah, archetypal image of ghost. You know, to us, we don't know that, and it's scarier because we don't. The Grudge is like that. What's the rule in The Grudge? How is it? As opposed to, oh, the thing that we got used to in Scream of here's the rules. Don't be alone, don't do this, don't do that. So instead, taking those apart, taking those expectations apart, some of which are structural expectations, like you're saying. What's going to happen in the first 5 minutes? Delaying, the most effective horror films of all time, I think, delay the horrors almost unbearably long. The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, the others, movies like that where it almost seems like nothing. Wolf Creek is another good example of that one, where almost nothing happens until you're like 40 minutes into it and you've let your guard down and then you're torn apart. And quickly, let me say one other thing. I think that horror at core is like, it's got a DNA strand with two pieces in it. One piece I like to call the ordeal. It's just physical endurance. It has always been one of the mainstays of the genre, going back to Poe, the premature burial, the pit and the pendulum. That still works today. A movie where someone's stuck in a coffin for 90 minutes. Anybody seen that? You know, burial? Well, that's the premature burial, right. So every horror movie will always periodically rely on just pure physical ordeal or endurance. It can be taken to an extreme like torture porn, and then that's all you've got, or it's an element to always be used. But the other strand of that DNA is not the physical endurance, but is something mental, some supernatural enigma. It doesn't have to be supernatural. Some enigma, some mystery. Horror is very connected to mystery. There's something to be figured out. Unlike a mystery, though, you won't figure it out and make it okay. It'll get you before you figure it out, or you'll find out, worse yet, that there is no solution. The universe is meaningless and out to get you, like many horror films suggest. So at core, I think it's that, this interweaving of, on the one hand, intense physical anxiety or ordeals with the kind of mental equivalent of that, of facing some mental enigma, some cosmic horror of what's really going on here.